So today we're chatting with Shwetambra Sabharwal. She's a psychologist, a psychotherapist, and we're talking about all things leadership, entrepreneurship, and also just keeping sane in this time, this tough time. How to maintain your team, how to keep them in the highest of spirits, and she has been dealing with a lot of clients in this pandemic who have had these kind of situations, and we thought that this would be the best topic for us today to discuss effective leadership. Hi Shwetambra.
Hi Shan, how are you?
How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we've all been waiting for you and very excited to talk about this topic. I think every entrepreneur that's kind of joined in or will watch this later will really appreciate it, because I know that you have been dealing with so many clients, whether during the pandemic or previously, who have issues like these, and you kind of help them get through them effectively. And today, who better than you to tell us more and kind of guide us through our dealing with our teams, dealing with colleagues, dealing with people that we work with during this time, because it's not easy. And I think everyone's feeling different feels. Yeah, everyone's feeling different feels. So again, thank you for being here. I'd love for you to quickly tell my audience a little bit about what you actually do, because I know I've deviated from your topic a little today and taken it more to entrepreneurship, because that's kind of our niche. So can you just share a little bit about your practice?
Sure, Shan. Thank you for that. So I'm a clinical psychologist and a psychotherapist. The journey has been beautiful because I've had the opportunity to start working about 16 or 17 years ago, when psychology was still a virgin subject. I got a chance to work with under with all sorts of people under the realm of psychology. So I have worked with corporates. At the end of the day, being an entrepreneur or being a leader is being human, and psychology plays a significant role in that. So yes, while this might be a slight digression in from what I've been doing, I think coaching and mentoring has become a significant role of psychologists today. Even in therapy, we find ourselves hand-holding, and usually we're not ones to dish out advice, but the times are exceptional, and we're also evolving and trying to do what we can. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about leadership. It's very close to my heart.
Awesome. Very excited to talk about that today. So as we all know that the startup world and India has so many startups. I think every day someone's starting out something new. People are evolving from small to big, and from their pivoting from their old business to something new. So can you tell us a little bit about what you think startups need to have to kind of set themselves apart, stand apart from the rest, and also kind of break out of the clutter? I feel like there's so much clutter around, and we can very easily be stuck amongst many. So what are your thoughts on this?
Lovely question, Shan, and I think it's such a good time to talk about this, because there has been there's been like this surge of startups, and while India was always one of the leading countries when it came to this, I think this has been exceptional worldwide. It's an exceptional time worldwide for startups. So yes, very significant. I think what is required is a very clear intention in what you're trying to do, because what's happening right now is that a lot of startups are a consequence of just isolation at home, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing. One of the side effects is that you're not having a clear structure, not being professional enough about things. So if you want to last long enough, I think a clear intention, like Simon Sinek would say, your why needs to be clear. Why do you want to do this? That helps you stay consistent, stay persistent, because, the journey of a startup is not easy. And of course, discipline and structure are very, very important. And when I say discipline, I don't mean it in a coercive way. Self-discipline is extremely important for any entrepreneur, whether you are, a startup, you're new in the business, or you've been there for 3 generations. I think self-discipline is extremely important. There's one more thing I want to add. Sorry, Shan. Something that you said, that there's a lot of clutter at the moment. That's one thing that I feel I actually see as a huge advantage. And I personally don't see it as clutter, because I feel that I understand where you're coming from, but because there are so many at the moment, so long as people stay adaptive, they're able to find solutions of what's working, what's not working, and they persist. I think this could really be a great time during such a difficult and challenging period in history
Absolutely.
of mankind. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a super basic question. I know there won't be a definitive answer to this, but something like what kind of personality traits or traits should an entrepreneur possess? So, you know, a lot of people tell me, I don't know how you do it. I wouldn't be able to work for myself. I'd rather work under someone else or in a corporate or, you know, in a company, or you know, always be under somebody else. But I know when you take, when it's entrepreneurship, it takes a lot of guts. It takes you to actually go out in there and be like, I'll win, but even if I fail, I'll kind of go through this, you know. So
Yeah.
is there anything that you can share with us, any personality traits that you think an entrepreneur should possess?
You know, both those words, I will try and balance them out, and I'll tell you why. I don't think that there is a particular personality trait you need to be an entrepreneur. I feel that, especially during this time, you know, there are a lot of people who didn't possess those typical popular personality traits at all and have still survived. They're doing so well and they're persisting. So there's enough and more evidence for us to know that there are no fixed personality traits. So everyone go for it. As far as us, you know, outlining what are the characteristics we need, I think one of the top characteristics is that a person needs to be comfortable with themselves. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If we are comfortable with ourselves, we are comfortable with mistakes, we're comfortable with learning, we're comfortable with adapting. And I think that is something an entrepreneur really requires to survive. Another thing that I'd like to add is, like I said earlier, that an entrepreneur needs to have an intention to contribute. If you have your intention to contribute and change maybe the life of 50 families, you'll make it. You can be an entrepreneur and you'll be able to persist and find ways in the face of challenges to be able to contribute. So being an entrepreneur is not about only, you know, it's not about leading. It's not about I don't want to work for someone else, and it's not about achieving. It's not about success even. It's about persisting, and it's about adding value in any way to other people's lives.
Yeah, that's very true and great, very well put. Because I think the minute you're adding value, I think even you start with a few and then move upwards. I think that's a great quality to possess. So thanks for that. Okay, so I want to ask you another thing: is leadership. How do we define leadership? Are there different leadership styles? Is every leader, you know, because there's some leaders that are very tough to work under, but there's some leaders who are very motivating but still soft. So are there different types of leadership styles, and what works best or what doesn't?
You know, there's been a very typical definition of leadership, and I think it's time for us to change the narrative. There has to be a perception shift. A leader, according to me, is someone who wants to add value. A leader is someone who is willing to mentor, is willing to coach, is willing to handhold, and has the patience for it and makes time for it. That is something that a leader needs to possess and should be willing to do. In terms of the popular kinds, things that the styles that I've seen, I mean, there are so many. Some of the most popular ones, and I'm not saying that they're popular in the sense that they work, but they're popular in the sense that they're common, are, let's say the autocratic type, where it's my way or the highway, you've got to do it the way I do it. Indians love an alchemist, right? As a leader, we love charisma, we love confidence. And I'm not saying that that also works well. I mean, like I said, in third world nations, that very often it works, but it's not necessarily a very effective style. According to me, a slightly more democratic and adaptive style of leadership works, and not just during this time. I think it will be a style that will persist for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's no right or wrong. I think it's what you kind of work with, or what kind of leader you look for. Some people may like someone very different to what an ideal leader actually looks like. So I want to ask you a few elements of effective leadership, according to you,
Yeah.
amid a pandemic, because this is very important. I think people were just thrown into this mess where they didn't know what to do, how to behave. I think none of us have really been through this before. So any suggestions, or how did people deal with it, or you tell them to deal with it?
I think one of the most fundamental things today about leadership is being a mindful leader. I know that you probably have heard that word in every possible context, whether it's parenting, schooling, all sorts of realms and areas. But I really like to talk to leaders about mindfulness because it teaches you to be in the present and then act. A leader who's mindful is not necessarily, I'm not talking about interpersonal relationships. I'm not talking about how they coach. Mindfulness is more about you in the present moment. And when you're able to do that, you can handle, you can cope from the smallest to the biggest crisis. A crisis such as this, where people's businesses have shut down or are going through a transformation. But if you look at it, the people who are surviving are the ones who are being able to adapt. So it's very, very important for leaders to now start looking at mindfulness as a corporate strategy. It has already made a very big debut in the US, in the West. It's a very big element in corporate culture. But we really need to start looking at mindfulness. And the second thing that I'd like to talk about effective leadership is being willing to mentor. And this one I'm going to take credit for. I've been talking to people for I think the last 16 years, whenever I've worked with leaders in even parents, it's just something that we have to make time for. People want to learn, we're hungry to learn, and we don't know where to look. And very often people look at the ones they aspire to be like, the ones who are leading them, the ones who inspire them. And for us to make, I'm telling you, 2 minutes a day to help someone talk their issue out, point them in a certain direction, even if you tell them something simple as, start doing yoga from tomorrow, I'm okay with it. But invest time in your people, in your teams, and that really helps, takes up effectivity a few notches.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me, during a tough time like this pandemic, hopefully we never have to go through this again, but we have been through this. But if the situation arises, what's the best way to keep your team motivated? I know that it's very hard because when you're working from home, what do? You don't have them face to face. You can't do an offsite. You can't be together. But
yeah, absolutely. I think with the times changing, all of our strategies of keeping our teams motivated and together have to change. I think this is a time that team leaders need to focus on resilience building, first of themselves and then of their teams. And the best ways we have right now is through virtual communication. I see a lot of significance in this. We are no longer leading two different lives where we look and feel and behave completely different and work. People are seeing us in our homes, in that home environment where we have to be ourselves. The kids are in and out. And I think this whole situation can be pivoted to form connections with your teams. The way you can know your people, the way you can understand your teams, there has been no better time. So it's very important for team leaders to not judge, make room for understanding, make room for observations, keen observations. What are their teams suffering? What are the problems they have? What are their teams suffering with? So those are something that will give them a foot in the door to connect, help them build resilience in their teams. It is a time where they really need to push for learning and adapting. Shan, are you with me? I see that
yes.
we're slightly choppy network. I'm sorry about that.
No,
just for this purpose, during this time, I've actually come up with an acronym that I've been using for my corporate videos, and I've been saying that, guys, rally through this time. And rally basically stands for resilience, adapt, learn, labor, which is basically another word for hard work. And Y stands for say yes to help, ask for help. Sometimes we need to say, we need to yield and say, I need help. So I'd like to say that Rally has been helping a lot of team leaders keep their teams motivated.
Absolutely, that's a great thing, because I think the last one really, really is something I say all the time. Ask for help, and I don't think that's such a big deal.
Yes.
You know, people don't realize how many people are out there willing to help you. Okay, so I want to ask you, you know, a lot of people unfortunately have been laid off in a time like this. A lot of businesses have had to shut down. A lot of small businesses which started could not sustain at this point, and people had to take up jobs. But if there are aspiring entrepreneurs at this point, do you think that they should be risk taking or risk averse? What's your choice? What would be your choice?
So I'm not a business analyst, and I'm not even going to take the risk of answering that one with those two words there, but I will give you what I have here. I think the key here is to maintain a balance. Look, this is new for all of us. What you and I are doing, this is new for me. So what I'm trying to do, you know, when I'm doing online sessions, which is something so new for us, but that's the way I contribute and I continue to fulfill my purpose here. So we have to create a balance. And there are advantages of both taking certain risks. For example, when I do a video call with someone who's depressed, there's a certain amount of risk, but I take it, I go for it because that's the way I contribute. And I'm in some ways averse to certain risks where I will point them in other directions because, of course, you have to be safe. You have to keep safety in mind, not just for yourself, but also for the other person. You have to make sure that you don't fall short. So a balance is extremely important. What's important is for us to recognize that this is very new for us. So we have to be a little bit forgiving in case we make mistakes. I think the biggest problem with the word risk is we don't want to go wrong. We don't want to lose. We don't want anything bad to happen. And, you know, that is something that we have to get over. We have to be willing to adapt and have the confidence that we'll transform ourselves into, you know, functional people, whatever the situation comes.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a comment from Drashti. It's a very valid comment, which says, saying yes to help is extremely important. However, being an entrepreneur, you tend to hear no a lot. How does one deal with it in the current situation? I want to say one thing before I let you take that answer. I think for me is it just pushes me to do. I'm the kind of person that if someone says no, I all the more want to go out and do that. So I don't know what the right answer for this is, Shwetambara, but I think you can take that answer now.
Yes, thank you. I don't get the name.
Drashti.
Drashti, thank you for that question. I think it's very significant. It gives me a chance to elaborate on something that I find so significant in therapy. You know, when I'm talking about say yes to help, I'm talking about us becoming self-aware of our challenges, of our weaknesses, and being willing to take help and reach out to other resources for that. So this is a time where if we are aware that there is something that's making us very anxious, if there's something that's making us sad or depressed, or if there's something that's triggering a lot of frustration and anger, we need to be able to understand that we're not supposed to be able to deal with everything perfectly. And it's important for us to at times yield and say, you know what, I can't deal with this by myself. So I'm going to reach out and ask for help. So that is the kind of help that I'm talking about, which is extremely important, especially in this context. And entrepreneurs can actually set an example. Leaders can set an example and say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with this and I'm going to reach out to someone to help me so that I can sound off my issues with them and actually seek therapy or coaching or whatever works for you, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with. And that can really have a lovely spillover effect on the rest of their teams. I hope that answers Drashti's question.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me, can you suggest some tips for people to kind of ease anxiety? I think anxiety is a very big one. A lot of people face this. People who've been positive through the year kind of face this now, even because I think that it's just trying times and we don't know what's coming next. But you know, people want to incorporate certain things in their life which reduce anxiety. Is there anything that you have in mind that people can do? Any quick fixes? Though I know that's the wrong word.
I love this quick fix answer. Everyone wants 2-word answers, quick fix answers, and I
That's wrong.
understand
I
where
agree with
where
you.
that's. I do no, it's not wrong at all. I think it's. I understand where it's coming from. I think what you really mean is practical tips, doable tips, because very often us health practitioners, we love to talk about theory, we love to talk about practices, and we have maybe overlooked practical application of it. So while a lot of people are willing to receive theory, they don't know. They're like, dude, how do we practice something like mindfulness? Break it down, you know. So I understand where that's coming from, and I think that is the word that I'm going to start with. The first thing we need to become or do is to become mindful, and I spoke about it earlier. It's very important for us to focus on, bring our focus to the present and then act. And what I mean by that, Shan, here is that neither is the past nor is the future in our control. And this is something leadership really struggles with, because they need to plan, they need to strategize. And I understand that they can have a headlight vision and maybe achieve that. But let me tell you, 5 kilometers, what lies ahead, no one knows. So it's very important for us to be in our present. And that is exactly what mindfulness is all about. The second thing I want to say is that, guys, let's stop being so anxious about anxiety. Anxiety is not a bad thing. It's an emotion. It's a universal emotion. We're going to feel it like we feel joy and cheer and frustration, sadness, anger. These are all emotions that make us normal. Anxiety has significant advantages. And, you know, maybe if I use the word concern and worry, it'll be slightly more understandable for you. So if you're concerned about a presentation, you're going to prepare for it. As a leader, if you're concerned about your team, you're going to work and take care of them, come up with strategies to get them to bond and perform, etc. So it's very important you understand that anxiety actually might be helping you to lead. It might be helping you to be effective. Deal with anxiety to try and get rid of it or reduce it only if it is making you dysfunctional. If it is interfering with your functionality, so much so that you're not being able to get out of bed, to not being able to do the things that you're usually able to do at work, at home, etc., that's when you need to make a mental note that here's something that I need to start looking at changing. Once you've recognized, I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit time on this one, but it's very significant. Once you've recognized that I am going through anxiety, there are some quick fixes. And I'll give you a couple of things that are coming to my mind, and they do need work, okay? So this is not treatment. These are just thought ripples and things for you to think about. The first thing that can be done is to create a thought pause. When we are mindful, see, it starts from mindfulness. When we are mindful, we are aware of our present situation. You will know what you're saying to yourself, which is bringing about the anxiety. So the first approach is we can dispute that irrational thought. For example, I'm going to go into that meeting. I won't know what to say. Okay. So the irrationality is I'm prophesizing. I've done this before. I've dealt with this. Even if I haven't done this before, I don't know what's going to happen. My approach is going to be, I'm going to go and contribute, not perform, not win hearts over, but I'm going to add value to that meeting. And if I make mistakes, I'll learn. So you see, what I'm doing is I'm disputing my fears. And I'll be able to change my thought and I'll be able to deal with my anxiety. I must say that while it's sounding like a quick fix, this needs some work. The second approach is when, again, starting with mindfulness, you become aware that you are anxious. You could also use self-regulation, with breathing techniques, with visualization techniques. So something that really helps is diaphragmatic breathing. Take deep breaths in and out. Good breath work really relaxes us. It brings your mind again to the present. When you're anxious, you're not in the present, you're thinking about the future. You're thinking about what will happen. That is when we are worried, concerned, or anxious. It typically, anxiety comes from future thinking. So you come back into the present. What is the best that I can do right now? I'm feeling anxious. I accept. I don't judge myself to be a loser, to be terrible. I'm not good at this. I don't judge myself. I self-regulate. So I let go of the judgment and the demands from myself. And I tell myself that I'm going to regulate this emotion, calm it down to just concern so that I can prepare for this meeting and not get anxious. Like this, Shan, I must say that there are a lot of fixes for anxiety, and the right people to approach for this are, of course, psychologists, and it really can change people's lives within a few sessions. It doesn't take years and years unless you go to a psychoanalyst, with all due respect. But there are many fixes for anxiety, and I hope these couple of approaches.
Thank you for that. I think that was detailed, and like Anu has written, very insightful. Thank you. Ani, the go-getter, has written, I do feel anxious sometimes during my work life. How do I overcome it? I think Shwetamra answered that very well in her last question. But I want to say one thing that really helped me is just keeping a positive mind. I know it sounds very silly and simple, but I think for me, I always look at every situation and say, okay, this is the worst it's going to get. Now what? How can I salvage this? And you know what? It'll only get better. You have to go down to come up. So please don't be anxious and think about it positively. I want to ask one last thing before I let you go, Shwetamra, is that, the startup world is kind of taken a toll in this pandemic. I don't know if people are nervous, what's going to happen. According to you and what you've been seeing around you, what do you think the next 6 to 12 months are going to look like?
Again, I wish I had some special analyst strengths or qualifications. I don't really. I think that I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability, and then give you a little bit of psychology input on that as well. I think the next 6 to 12 months are very significant. A lot of startups will survive, grow, and become significant businesses. A lot may not last. Like I said, that, quite a few have been the result of us just being at home, us being isolated, and hobbies turning into businesses.
Yes.
And I think that if it has come from a very clear intention and an intention to contribute, it's going to last and it's going to work, because some of the new ideas that have come up are incredible. And of course, there'll be some that won't, but how is that different from any other time? I think what I want to add to this before we say bye for today is that it's very important for anybody in the corporate world, whether it is a startup, whether it is an entrepreneur who's been around for many, many years, whether it is a leader, a team leader or not, someone who's taking instructions, someone who's doing regular clerical work from home, whatever it be, it is a time for all of us to invest significantly in 3 very, very important aspects, and that is the body, mind, and soul. We cannot negate the significance of us needing to invest in our bodies. I remember when we were children, the most important thing was, for success, first of all, success was most important. And then to get there, it was hard work. I think that narrative has changed, or has to change, for the people who still maintain that. It is all about balance. You have to put a little bit of yourself in everything. And that everything involves your body, your eating, your exercising, sleeping, resting, spending time in things that you like to do, nature, your children, whatever. Investing yourself when it comes to the body. Investing yourself in growing your mind such that your thoughts are rational, your thoughts stick to the present, and your thoughts stick to what you can do. Not only, as leaders, sometimes people start expecting and demanding, well, okay, if that works for you, great, but you also need to look at what you can do. So your mind needs to focus on that. And I'd like to take this discussion towards this beautiful end of investing in your soul. And I think that it's very important for leadership to recognize that we have to invest in our souls. And
Absolutely.
The best 2 soul practices are being compassionate and gratitude practices. Those can give you, I believe, what some of the best business degrees around the world can't. It can give you a vision, and it can give you value, which when you share with your teams, And if they are able to come on the same wavelength as you, there's nothing stopping you guys. So with that, I'd like to just reiterate that investing in your body, mind, and soul is extremely important, not just during these times, but even otherwise.
All through it. I absolutely agree. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely chatting with you, and I think you went in depth into every question that I asked you. And thank you for that, because sharing information is so important for the people listening, and whoever listens to this later. I hope that it really benefited you, because it's very important to invest in yourself as a leader, entrepreneur, both. So thank you, Shwetambar. Thanks so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Shan, and thank you for bearing with my detailed answers. That is something that I'm mindful about, but I don't want to change it because I just need to say what I have to say.
It was great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I had a great time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.